Tech Talks, House Rules. Join us on AVE Live, Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join us on Zoom. Watch on Facebook or YouTube from the AV Educate page, or register as an attendee for the webinar. Live Q&A. Our guest will lead us through a guided demo and conversation about tonight's topic. We will take your questions and comments throughout the show. Don't wait until the end. Get your questions and comments in early to shape the conversation. We don't know it all. We're human and don't claim to know everything. We may demonstrate or discuss one way to do something, but that doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. If you found another way that is easier or yields better results, please share with the community so we can all learn together. Follow AV Educate. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and have a library of content on YouTube. Join us on Zoom for AV Tech Talks and to become a member of our community on Discord, where the conversations, the learning, and the sharing continues. We are where you are. Place your phone over the QR code to come learn more about AV Educate.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to AV Tech Talks. It is March 13th today. It was in the U.S. The end of daylight savings, so we all lost an hour of sleep. But we are here and ready to talk about Unity Intercom. So hopefully everybody has maybe had a chance to look, if you saw the event page or saw some of the links, and checked out Unity Intercom, or maybe you've heard of it, aren't sure what it's about. You can let us know in the chat. Let us know how much experience you have with Unity Intercom. If this is the first time you're hearing of it, then you are in for a treat. We've got Peter Erskine here today, who's going to be giving us a demo. I also want to welcome Andy, who is a new addition to our panel today. So thank you for joining us. Great. And if you're here, you can join us in the Zoom webinar. We'll put those links, that way you're a little closer to the action. But either way, if you get your questions or comments in the chat, if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, we'll make sure we get to those. We have a queue that we'll put them in, and we will answer them as soon as we can get to them. But also, Pete's going to drop so much knowledge on us that he might answer all the questions that we have. We'll see, but we suggest you get them in early so that we have the time to get to those questions before the end. Omar, you got anything you want to add?
No, if you're new to the show tonight, we changed from Mondays to Sundays, so welcome to the new time frame here. Super excited to have Pete talk with us tonight about this. I've been using it. I'm sure a lot of you have been using it out there, so super interesting to kind of dive into a couple things here. Like I had said, I'll just reiterate that if you guys have any questions or anything, please put them in the comments. We will put them in our cue sheet, and we'll get to them as quickly as possible. But again, I don't like to do all the talking here. It's all about Pete tonight and learning about Unity Intercom. So I'm super interested to dive in. I saw a couple of things here on the pre-side that were super interesting and cool to look at, and I had some questions already just from visually looking at things, and I'm sure the audience tonight will as well. So I'm eager to just dive in and see what we can learn.
Great. So yeah, I'm not going to delay any longer. I'm just going to kick it off to Pete. Let us show us what you got for us tonight.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. This is really a great opportunity to talk about Unity. Over the pandemic, on my show, practicalshowtech.com, we had about 6 different shows about Unity, many with Unity people actually doing the shows. but also shows about ClearCom and RTS and Riedel. So I've been doing comm since about the 70s. In fact, this headset I started using in the 70s, a telco headset with a carbon mic, and it probably sounds pretty good to you. That's because it's not really that mic that I'm using. So there we go. So the advent of digital intercom has been amazing over the years. When we first used the first digital intercom at the Salt Lake City Olympics, a Riedel system, it was such a pleasure because you didn't have to worry about buzz or hum or all that stuff, and it was really great. And it's evolved immensely since then. Unity Intercom is particularly interesting for the past couple of years because it has allowed thousands of different companies to do their own shows without leaving their home, because it's entirely based on the internet. The whole thing is an internet-based intercom system. The clients, the part you use, actually only have 6 buttons on them. I'm going to show you a client right now. This is a client. This is on an iPhone, and I can talk on the iPhone by pressing the middle. I can select the channels I want to talk to by pressing the top, or not listen to things on the bottom. I can do all kinds of functions. Now, it only has 6 buttons on the front of the client, but I can select up to 64 different groups of 128 different channels. So it's pretty versatile. The New York City Marathon, for years and years and years, has been done by CP Communications, and they've used walkie-talkies for it. And they basically installed 6 or 7 repeater sites throughout New York City. Took them about a week or 2 to do that. Immense coordination of frequencies for all that equipment. And then along came Unity Intercom, and they traded out the 100 walkie-talkies used on the show for 100 of these. Let me unshare here so you can see this a little bit better. Of these Android phones. These are made by Sonam. They're about $1,000 a piece with all the accessories, but it's a military grade phone with military grade connections on it. And you can put regular headsets, push to talk mics. The battery is removable, and it lasts all day long with the screen on. So you don't have to change your batteries a lot, which is some of the fears of trying to do your client on an iPhone. The whole thing is operated from a server, and I'm going to show you a diagram of the system that gives you an idea how this all works. So here, the yellow part is the server, and it is located, my server is located at Mac Stadium in Las Vegas on an M1 Mac Mini. And in that server, there are 3 pieces of software I use. Unity Intercom, a program called Loopback, and Unity Connect. Unity Intercom is the intercom part that gives me the ability to talk to all of the different client phones out there over the internet. Loopback is a piece of software that allows me to interconnect the audio within the computer. So I can take instead of the audio from Unity Intercom going out the speaker on the Mac, it's going to Loopback, and then it's fed into Unity Connect, which then connects to the internet and goes out to the world. And here I've shown Unity Connect from my local venue, the blue part. And this is the piece of software that I bring with me, the computer I bring with me to my shows. And I plug it into my local comm system into a Motu 16A D to A converter, or I take Dante and feed that directly into Unity Connect, which then connects the 2 sites together. Unity Connect is an amazing piece of software. It connects 64 channels of sample accurate audio in 2 directions between 2 different sites. And it was originally designed to transport Dante over the internet, but it works perfectly for this. You can have a large number of Unity Connect software plugging to each other. So you can connect the whole network of audio back and forth. It's not just one-to-one. So this is the basic layout of what we're going to do. And now we'll look at what the Mac Mini, this Mac Mini actually has in it on my site. And we'll log on to that site now. If I can click the right button.
Pete, with Unity Connect, I've had somebody ask me this question before. Is that uncompressed audio, or what is that compressed audio?
It is totally uncompressed audio. What you put in, you get out.
That's amazing. Great.
Yeah.
So and the latency is super low. That's the other beautiful thing of it.
So here right now, the main thing I'm showing you the server screen, and here's Unity Connect software, which I'll go into right now. On the remote tab, I enter in here. I have best remote. That's the name of my local Unity Connect. And you see here, it's running at 34.3 milliseconds. That's one way. So it's pretty good. Because I'm in New York and the server's in Las Vegas.
Amazing.
So here on Unity Connect, we'll start we'll go backwards. We'll start from Unity Connect, go back through loopback, and then into the Unity server. So in Unity Connect, it has 2 directions. What I call Unity Connect to the server, and the other way is the server to Unity Connect. So it takes care of the 2 directions of audio. And here I'm looking at the Connect to server, and here's on the left on this line right here. These are all the channels that are coming from the remote site. And you see down here, there are 2 program channels, the Zoom channel, you see the audio on it, and there's a music channel on it down here. And that's being routed into the playback device into the computer. Now, if I wanted to, here's my production channel, this little button here, which I can click and unclick, but I could take the music here and feed it also in there. And I can right click on it and mix the music at a different level. If I just wanted to mix a little bit of program audio into that channel, I could do it right here. So here's the audio coming in. The opposite side is the audio coming out. When I label these channels here, these labels show up on the other end and vice versa. This is an identical piece of software on both ends. So this gets my audio to the server. And now, in between, there's a program called Loopback. And Loopback allows you to set up channels within it. So here is 2 different channels, Connect to server and server to Connect. You can see here on the Connect to server, you can see the audio coming in from the program feeds. And here it is from down there, channel 10 and 11, you see it coming in. It's going through its channels here. And I can't have the ability to monitor it, which doesn't make too much sense in this use because my server is in Mac Stadium in Las Vegas. So I can't really listen to it. But I'm just displaying that you can route the server. And if I wanted to monitor something else, I could select that channel, delete it, and then drag another channel over to my monitor to monitor it that way. So this is a way of monitoring what you're sending in. And here I have the channels. It's basically 16 to 16. And I set up these 2 identical And it's just a matter of what you stick in one end and what you take out the other end. So here, connect to server. So my connect audio knows it's going to this, and it comes in here and goes out the server. And my server audio comes in here and goes out this direction. So it's in connect. It's a pretty simple piece of software, but without it, you really can't put two pieces of audio software on one computer and connect them together. Now, on the actual server part, let me get these out of the way so it's not confusing here. This is the server, and it runs on a Mac computer only. It does not run on a PC. All of the clients, the actual intercom stations you use, can run on any platform, iOS, Mac, Android, PC. You can put them on any piece of a computer, and they all essentially work the same. There are slight differences between them in the way their software is set up, but basically they still have the same communications capability. This is the general part of the Unity server, the general tab. And the only thing that's important on it, there's a little thing that says network interface, where you can select what interface you're connected to. And I don't know why they bother having it, because if you set it, one of your options is any, and it works fine because it looks for the signal of what it wants to see, the signal of what it wants to connect to. So if I've found it, if you put it on any, it works all the time. Often, if you put it on your Ethernet port that you think you're connecting to, it won't always work. So second level here, that's the main thing here. Second level is the channels that you want to talk in your server. So here we've got a bunch of channels, regular, like on an intercom system, production, audio, video, lights, sound effects, special effects, comms, point to the director, light ISO, and audio ISO. So these are channels I've just set up arbitrarily. I can do 128 different channels of audio. And there are a few things you can do in each row of the audio channel, like production here. I have an abbreviation which is going to show on my client. I can connect it to the input. We'll talk more about inputs in a second. I can set a level. I can connect it to the output and set another level. I can also have it run a GPIO. Secondly, you can click on test and it will spit out a tone for a few seconds. You may hear that tone. It's coming out of the production channel of the client I have right next to me. Just so you test, you're getting a feed.
I hear it real loud in my ears because I have Unity pumping to my ears as well.
There we go.
Thanks
well,
for
it's for testing. It's not. It doesn't have any other purpose. There's no way to send a low-level tone. But so the important thing is you click that, and now because I'm sending it out input 1, because that's the input 1 of the audio interface is what I'm connecting to my intercom system on the production channel. So I'm connecting my Readle system production to this channel here via audio input number 1. So now I have all these channels, but I want to be able to allocate them between all the different flavors of clients. So the next step is a thing called groups. So in my group, I create a group. Here's a default group, and it has on the 6 buttons, production, audio, video, lights, special effects, and comms. And each one of these, I can select anything in it, any one of the channels in this button. So I've created 4 of them here. Director has production, point to the director, and nothing on the rest. So there's specialized for each different, let's say, department that might be using these, and you can have 64 different groups in the system. Now, with 128 different channels and 64 different groups, I have done use my server on up to 3 different shows at the same time. And nobody even knew that they were all on the same server because I fed them in with different Unity Connects, fed their audio in differently. And if I programmed it wrong, they would hear each other, but mostly they don't. So if you do it, it's right. So it's very versatile that way. And I know that Unity themselves rents out a cloud-based Unity server like this very inexpensively. The only downside to the Unity server cloud-based is in no way to interface other intercoms into it. You basically just you're just talking Unity client to Unity client, no external. Now there is a slight workaround that, which Ed actually set up in his office there. Just take one of the clients, interface the audio on your client, either your PC, your Mac, or your iPhone, into your intercom system and latch on the talk. So now you have a single channel connected to one of the comm channels, and it works out pretty well. There is a setting in the client that we'll go through those settings in a second, but there's a setting in the client that will latch on your audio continuously without any Vox operation, so you can get nice, clean connection. So that's groups. Now we go to users. So here's a user list. I have 3 set up from me and Michael and Ed, and then a bunch of open user ones. And my license, it can have 35 different channels. And you buy your license the whole system starts with 3 channels. You buy the 3 channels, and then you buy additional channels after that. And you can do that on the fly. If I decided all of a sudden I wanted to add more channels, I could go to the store, as it were, right there, and just click and buy it, and bingo, I got more channels. So on my system right here, I have the Unity Server base license. I have the Unity IO license, which is the audio in and out. I have Unity Advanced Program Feed license, which gives me more channels and more capability, and expanded channels and groups, which is that multiple groups that I just showed you before. If I wanted to add on 2 more channels or 2 more users or 10 more users, I could click on there and just add them on. So back to here, each one of these users is one client, and a client might be an iPhone, an Android, a client on a PC, it's like a belt pack. This would be a belt pack or a panel in a regular intercom system. And I can set up passwords for everybody, which is obvious because everybody will know that you're logging on with your name probably. And if you don't have a password, people will log on to steal your channel. Right next to that is a thing called mic trim. A few months ago, I was on a show and we were using a lot of Unity. All of the producers, the director, the TD, were all in Las Vegas, all in Los Angeles, and the show was in New York. All we had in New York was a Riedel system with 3 cameras, a camera operator, an AD, and A1 all on there. And the rest of the crew was on the West Coast. And I couldn't really control the levels of what they were doing. It really annoyed me. And I mentioned this in an email to Unity. And they said, give me an hour, I'll have a fix for you. And sure enough, before we were done with our first rehearsal day, they said, do an upgrade on your server. And this column appeared. And in this column, each user has a plus or minus 10 setting. So I can adjust their level plus or minus 10 dB. So obviously it's not a full gain operation, but it gives me enough to correct for somebody who's screaming during a rehearsal and whispering during the show. The reason they were able to do that so quickly is the server software is totally under their control. They don't have to get permission from Apple to put it on their client, or Android to put it on their client, or PC or Mac to put it on their client. It is their piece of software, and it doesn't require approval by any other company. So they're able to make these kind of changes pretty quickly. If they needed to make a change on an Apple or an Android, they'd have to make the change, send it off to the people that be at those companies, and a couple of months later they would approve it, and then they could push it out. To the right of this, here's our 6 channels. Production, audio. I'm looking at the audio group, currently displayed group audio. And I can select a different audio. Let's go back to the default audio. Now I can go to each one of these users and I can turn off their talk. So this right now, my belt pack right here can only listen to production. It can't talk. Or I can't have a talk without a listen. So if you select talk, you're going to get a listen. But you can have a listen only, just like that. So here I've set up everybody with their listens, but I want to give some people more channels, more options, more ways of looking at it. So production is a standard channel that I've kept, but here, if I go over to the audio group, production still exists, audio's there, but now they have a channel called Audio ISO. So this is a new thing. And since I've programmed myself and these 3 belt packs and Ed to have more than one group, they can then change their client so they can look at it slightly different. So here we are on the client, and down here it says lights. I can now go to audio, default, director, and I've got production on all of them. So if I turn on my production listen, the blue on the bottom, I can be listening to production even if I change it. Now, when I have production on one of the groups and I go to another group, I don't hear the first group. So if I want to always hear production, I have to turn it on every group in my client, this client. Now, the bottom row here, where it says production, see the little blue part of that? If I hold my button on that, it goes away. If I hold my finger on it again, it comes back. That gives that listen channel a priority over the other channels. If I go to another channel here and I can turn it on there, now there's 2 channels here that have priority. What that is, if audio comes in on the director channel, if I have both the listens on and audio comes in on the director channel, and then audio comes in on the production channel will duck or dim the audio coming in on the director channel. So the most important channel that I'm listening to, I can give priority to. Now, if I go to settings up here on the top, not settings, volume down on the bottom, and go to the second page of this, here are priority channel ducking. So I can set my priority channel ducking to be 1620 dB or so direct. When somebody's talking to me on a point-to-point, not party line, this will duck the party lines a certain amount. And if I have a program feed running, down on the bottom of the screen here, you see there I have zoom on. Let me put it on this music here. I've got a zoom on. You won't hear it because I don't have it interfaced into this system. But if I have music playing, that will duck the program feed. And then this is the message that you have been disconnected. And basically it says connection lost. So if you don't want that to be really loud in your ear, if you walk out of range, if you go into an elevator and there's no cell service in the elevator, that's the message you'll get. And as soon as you come back into a place that has a connection, you'll get connected right away. So on the other half of this audio screen, we've got side tone level, which I don't ever use because I'm an intercom guy. The bane of comms is side tone, because you don't know if you're talking to yourself or to the intercom. So I always leave it off, but you have the ability of turning that on. That side tone is actually created inside of each client. So it's not like it's going back to the server and then coming back to you, which would then mean you'd be off by 70 milliseconds or so. But it's just created inside each client. Then I can turn up the audio coming into if people are not loud enough. If I am not loud enough, I can change my mic level. If I'm using a special headset, a Bluetooth headset, which is too loud or not too loud, I can put that in there. And then it has a noise gate here, which I'm not sure why it's grayed out, but it is. Down on the bottom here, the split feed left and right. If I'm wearing a stereo headset, it allows me to put it into program audio into one ear and my intercom audio in the other ear. And then a pan for that same service here. So we go back to the original. Over here on the right top are the users. So I have in this list here, I have Ed and my two clients, and I can talk to them directly just by holding this down without interrupting any other people in the system. It's basically a point to point. If they have turned their phone off, or if they've turned this app off, I can click on the page button and it will send an offline page to that person as a text. Say, please turn on your Apple phone app, your intercom.
So Pete, I'm gonna just interrupt for a sec. So the audience who's watching on Facebook and YouTube, I just put up my client. Oh, sorry, I didn't actually take it. There we go. Let me take it. So I just put up my client and your client, so they can see the point to point. If you want to do that point to point again for a second, I just want to show.
If I talk to Ed, I'm talking to Ed, and it now flashes on his. If you look at your front screen, the whole screen is flashing to give you an idea. And on the right-hand side of the screen is a scrolling list of people who have called you. So and channels you've talked to. So here you'll see on your list everything you've talked to going all the way down. And you can actually see where you were. If you missed a call, it's more useful if you're missing a call. So if I go back and talk on production, I got to select a channel. Now I'm talking in production, and it's coming out of my PC, so you're going to hear an echo.
And what people are seeing, because they're seeing the two clients side by side, when you press talk, you'll notice the production channel on my little slice in the blue has a yellow indicator that shows that someone is talking on that channel.
Yeah, that's where you see audio coming in. They let a little yellow underneath the button there. Now in the software, in the settings, one of the settings is single channel talk mode. And what they found out when they first started doing using these for the New York City Marathon, people with 6 channels would just turn on all 6 channels and talk on all 6 at the same time. And they added this function here to give them the ability to not have to worry about it. So as I select back and forth between production and director, it's turning off the other channel. So I can listen to all of them at the same time. That's only bothering me. But this way you're not being lazy and not choosing the right person to talk to. Also in settings, this is the down below single channel talk mode. It's the constant talk mode. Normally, when you're talking on the using the button on the front, the center yellow button, It's got a Vox capability in it. It doesn't always send all the audio through in an effort to cut down on noise. But if you turn on constant talk mode, it's going to force that to be on all the time. And that's what you would use if you were feeding audio into a client on your PC or on your on an iPhone or on an Android. Couple other things down here. You can, screen stays on. If you want to save your battery, you can turn the screen off. You can turn on a beep if you're doing a private point to point, just to let you know that it's that private message. And then there's a thing called audio buffer. What that is that's a buffer on the incoming audio to you. It's usually called a jitter buffer. So if I turn this down to its lowest setting of 40 milliseconds, that's its default when you first set up your client, and you're hearing audio cut out, it means that your connection is not good enough to give you a full stream all the time. So if you turn this buffer up a little tiny bit until that intermittent audio goes away, you can prevent that. Obviously, it does go up fairly high, but even 200 milliseconds is not enough to cause noticeable delay in the audio. As long as you're not standing next to the person, right next to them when they're calling you, it sounds like a normal cell phone call. So I see there's a question from Ed, from Ray Franklin, about service fees. The only way I can answer that is really you have to talk to go to the Unity website and look at their rental rates for their cloud service. I think that's the service fee you're asking about. As a Unity supplier, I supply Unity myself with all of my computers. I charge $100 per channel per week, figuring it's never going to be just a day. It's always going to be a week. So if I have 5 channels of Intercom interfaced into the system, plus 5 clients out there listening to the system, so that's 10 clients times $100. It costs them a week. So that'd be $1,000 for the week. The other clients like that have Unity charge different rates. So you really have to work for them. A channel would be a party line. I mean, a channel would be an interface party line. Yes. So let's go back to the server for a second. And then after users, we've talked about all of these ways you can talk and listen to different channels. The next thing is a thing called audio feeds. Now, back in channels in the beginning, let me skip back here. Back in channels, here I routed production to channel 1, production to channel 1, audio to channel 2, video to channel 3. That connects the audio channel, the external audio channel, to the production channel of my Unity Intercom. I do have an input level control here and an output level control to adjust the level of that feed going in. But the users, the actual users on the phone, on the app, don't have volume controls. If I wanted to use one of these, a little tube in their ear or a little earphone on their ear, and they're hearing a feed from the audio console, which is a mix minus, and usually it's a mix minus their own voice. That way they know they're talking. And when somebody wants to, from a remote site, wants to talk to them, they talk into that channel. And they hear them and they're able to have a conversation. However, when the director wants to talk to that person, he pushes a button on his panel called IFB, and he interrupts the foldback into that person's ear. So then he interrupts the conversation or the program that's going into their ear. So that's the IFB. So here we've got an IFB mix minus I've created, and I'm going to have it come in on channel number 7. And that's only a one-way thing. So it's to feed into the Unity client. So here I've got an IFB mix minus, and I'm going to go over here to groups, and I'm going to make a new group called on air. And this is going to, on air is going to be the IFB mix minus. And he's going to have on here IFB mix minus. So he only has one thing on his Unity client, IFB mix minus. He listens to it. He's got his wireless mic. He's talking through the camera to the air. He's getting a feedback to his ear. And now there's IFB mix minus. But let's put on a channel here to the production channel. So now on his client, let me go add it to a user here. I'm going to open up.
Why don't you add it to mine? Add it to my user, because then I can show it.
Okay. So I'm going to that, and I'm going to open up the new one on air. And here in on air, we're going to put the listen to that and the production. Why doesn't it show up here on air groups?
Which group is that going to go to?
On air production, okay. And then in users, it's going to be in a group called on air. So here's my on air. And I'm going to do the same to my panel here. Why can't I see? Okay, this one, this one, this one, this one. There we go. Well, I don't understand why I'm not seeing these titles come up on here. Suffice it to say, if you run your program audio in through the channel called audio feeds, it shows up on the volume page of your Unity client, and you can adjust the volume up and down separate from your intercom. So your intercom, you still talk to the producer on the production channel, but in your volume page, you can change the listen volume. Tucker asked the question, 5 users with 6 PLs. If I were renting it for 1 week, it would be, that's 11 times 100, be $1,100. If I was renting it, that would include all the computers, but not the client rental. So people would put them on their own iPhones or Android or Macs or PCs. Now, Ray Franklin asked another question. How do you get around hotel Wi-Fi. Well, I wouldn't use Wi-Fi at all. I would make all your clients be cellular. It's much more reliable. And as people walk around with cellular, your phone calls aren't interrupted. You can walk through an entire hotel and have a phone call, and you are actually being handed off to different antennas within the hotel. So you're getting a much better signal. Now, Unity can be used on Wi-Fi, but if you were if you had a Wi-Fi signal in your venue, in your ballroom, and it was really good, you could probably use it there. Now, that's a big caveat. The Unity Intercom needs a couple of special ports opened in the network, and the network is something that you're probably not going to be able to get done. Let's see if I have a client for it. I don't have a client. I didn't take a picture of it. But having a port number 20101 needs to be open to the internet on the Wi-Fi. And if you have an IT service in the hotel that will do that, you can then take your server, which is at, let's say, offsite, like I have it, and use it for your Wi-Fi connected headsets on site. Whereas if they're just using cellular, you don't have to worry about that. Now, if you're put your server on your own computer in your facility, and your network doesn't go out to the internet, only connects within the network. It's a local network. And your computer and your Wi-Fi is on that local network. You don't have to worry about opening up those ports, 20101. You're not going out to the internet. You're not going through any routers, which are going to stop you. And so you can use it locally. 2 years ago, I was on a show in Las Vegas. It was an esports event. And they had gotten a report of a report of somebody wanting to come in and shoot the place up. So the police were all upset. They wanted to have a microphone that would talk to the PA and to be able to tell the people to exit, to get out. And they wanted the microphone to work in the lobby. They wanted to work out in the loading dock. They wanted it to work everywhere. And so this was done like literally as we're doing the show. And there was no real way to do that, to cover wireless mics, all those places. So I downloaded the server from Unity as a demo. You get 30 days demo, put it on my laptop. We had an in-show IT department. They gave me the public IP for their system, and they opened the ports on their public IP. And we fed the laptop that had the server on it, fed the audio out of the laptop into a Dante feed into the PA system, which fed the whole PA system. And it took about 10 minutes to set up. And then they had basically an iPhone with one channel on it, and they push this one channel and they talk on it, and they're coming out of the PA, and it worked everywhere. And the quality was as good as a wireless mic would be. It worked really, really well. And they were quite amazed that we were able to do that. Luckily, we never had to use it. So if you want to experiment with Unity Server, you can download it, load it, and play with it for free for 30 days. Doesn't have all the capabilities. You don't have the group. You don't have the audio I/O. You don't have the extra things you have to pay for. But it works, as a client-to-client basic. So long time ago, we went to this screen to talk about audio I/O, and I got sidetracked on a million different things. But in the audio I/O, you have your 64 different channels of audio coming in that you can program into the system. And those 64 channels, also represented down here in this grid here, can be intercom audio, they can be program audio, they can be IFB audio, whatever you want. And you can change the name of it right here, change the program feed name. And if you look down a little bit, I call one of them Zoom and another of them RF music. And those are feeding ports 10 and 11. And then here, all these users that are programmed here, I selected the users and I programmed them to talk to 10 and 11. So now they have a program feed into their Unity Intercom of those two channels. Now I could also do the same with the IFB feed. I could give them that IFB feed in here. I can give them up to 64 channels, selectable one at a time, into their Unity client. After all this is programming and you have a show that's all up and running, you might ask, how do I save this to use on the next show? Well, right up on the top of your Unity server system, there's a pull down button, and that gives you the ability to save the configuration to your PC and restore it later. Ray asks again, you gave the cost for the remote hardware rental for a week. How much for a complete system, including the client server and someone at your place to monitor during the show? That price, if you were just doing a show out there and you wanted me to monitor it, I'd have to talk to Unity. They do have some rules about renting out their service. And the rules apply that if I'm on the show, I can rent out this system. But they don't want people to rent the system without a person with it. And I don't know the politics behind that all. I just was told by them, don't just rent the equipment. So I don't want to get them mad at me, so it's fine. Marty Atlas says, what do the client buttons look like when there are more than 6 channels? They never are more than 6 channels. You can't have more than 6 channels on your client, period. And I know that a lot of people want to have more than that, and on a show where you have a director and a stage manager and all that sort of stuff, they might want to have more channels. But unfortunately, there's no way to do that. So if you have a regular intercom system like Riedel or RTS or Clearcom, you can use the regular 32 button panels for those people and then interface a few channels into Unity for the people that don't need to have all those different channels. Now, you can do more than 6 channels that you can access. You can give people a bunch of different groups they can access. However, they have to switch between their groups to access those channels. And it might be possible, like I said before, if you put production in every single group, that's the one you want to listen to all the time. And then different groups in the rest of it, you can switch between it and find different buttons. Switch to the buttons you need at that moment and talk to those people. Now, you've always got the users, the point-to-point users available on your screen. So you can always go point-to-point to them. I think hopefully that answers that question there. So we've got audio in and out on our Unity server. It's got a couple other features which I don't have licenses for. One is called Tally, GPIO, which is a way to put a relay control coming out of the system to control tally on your cameras or switch different equipment. And then they have an encryption system called Privacy, which allows you to do that. Those are added things that you would need for particular clients. In the advanced area, they have a thing: configure audio devices in ultra low latency mode for wired clients. This only works if your server is on site with you. So you can turn on the clients here in ultra low latency and get down to a millisecond or two, as long as the server is on site with you, and as long as you are running all your clients in a wired mode. Now, I have two devices. I have this is a USB-C to Ethernet with a power, so I can plug this into my Android and plug it into the network and still power it. And I have the same little dongle available for my iPhone to plug in power and the network, so I can network power it locally and not have to worry about it going dead. Any other questions?
It looks like you answered both of those questions already, so I'm going to put them into the done section. Something I'd love to hear about maybe a little bit is use cases. Some of the other use cases that that you've had using Unity Intercom. I know you've used on some high-profile events, and maybe talk about some of that and how complex the setups are, because I think what Unity maxes out is like 128 party lines, right? That's
128 channels or party lines, but it only interfaces from an external source. 64 is maximum, so you can have 128 party lines, but only 64 of them can connect to the outside world.
Got it. And then,
and you can have 64 groups of those 128 channels. So some of the channels could be only amongst themselves, only amongst the clients talking from the group together.
Copy that. Now, I've also done some installs using Unity where we interfaced it with two-wire intercom using something like Studio Technologies DC45. How often are you doing that? Are you ever pulling Unity into more of the physical on-prem kind of thing and interfacing it with two-wire or four-wire comm, for example?
What I mentioned before was taking your regular client, your Android phone or your iPhone, and making a headset cable for it that is basically audio in and audio out instead of a headset. Take a regular headset, cut the connectors off, put XLRs on them, and plug those directly into your Studio Technologies converter, 2 to 4 wire converter, to get audio into a client. And then you can latch the client on and feed one channel of audio into your remote server. I've done that a couple of times when I didn't want to get the complexity of getting out a whole nother computer and getting my Motu 16 channel converter out and the whole thing,
Right. I've done it with Dante, actually, over at Justin Herminghouse's facility. We've interfaced 8 two-wire party lines, ClearComm party lines in the 4 theaters. Every theater has an A and B channel of two-wire comm, and each theater got a DC45, so we could run in 2 to Wirecom channels, put them on the Dante network, and then send those to our self-hosted server as channels, and then we're able to talk to the theater hardwire comm from our Unity interfaces. We also did the same thing with radio interfaces. We had some RME interfaces that took our 6 channels of radios and dumped those onto Dante, and then we were able to bring those into Unity Intercom. And then the really cool thing about having your own self-hosted server is you can have GPOs, so that can trigger the relays to key on a radio channel, for example. So that was a pretty cool install that we did. And there were plenty of times I was sitting home in my living room, and I'd just pull up my phone and pop onto Unity, and I'd be able to talk to any one of our 4 theaters or any of the 6 radio channels from pretty much anywhere in the world. So a lot of functionality that you can get into with somewhat of a hybrid setup, and it doesn't have the cost that maybe you would need with like an Agent IC or some other IP-based more expensive solution.
Yeah, the cost of this system is actually pretty low. If you don't count the computers, it's very low. If you pay, I think the cost is around $4,000 or $5,000. You can have an unlimited license, any number of channels, any number of users. But you can work your way up to that a bit by bit, like I do. I worked my way up to 32 channels, which is all I need, and then I could add another 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Or I could, the cost of that is about half of what the unlimited license is. I probably spent like $2,500 or so on it so far, but which is fairly low compared to an intercom system, a regular intercom system.
Right. Absolutely. I think, one of the other things that is nice too is the server. Having a server is great because it gives you so many more options. But in a pinch, Unity also has its own cloud service, the Unity Cloud. I actually just did a show recently where comms was not really thought of. We were using radios for communications on a large golf course for a high-profile event, and it didn't work on day one. So after the show, I convinced the people above me. I said, hey, let's just use Unity Intercom. We'll do the cloud. We'll go to Walmart. We bought everybody on the crew, about a dozen people, a little wired headset, and we bought some Lightning to 1/8-inch adapters for the people with iPhones that don't have 1/8-inch regular headset ports on their phones. And we got everybody just on their own phone. We got 15 users for a week, and it was, pretty inexpensive, but it got us a comm solution like that. I was able to just set up the users super quickly. So
particularly if you don't need to connect to another comm system or outside world or anything else, it's very well. And I think they're pretty inexpensive. It's something like $50 for the first 5 users or something like that for a month.
Yeah, it's pretty cheap. Not quite that cheap, but yeah, it's pretty inexpensive. They have the pricing on the Unity Intercom website. But yeah, no, it is pretty affordable. And I've actually doing a ton of virtual production through the pandemic. Some of the companies I was working for as a tech from home, they bought into the cloud based option. They weren't ready to invest in a server. But it got all of us who were, all over the country working from home to do these productions, and we were using it as remote IFB. I had another client in California that did a lot of auctions, online auctions during the pandemic for like galas. They would, fundraising things. And I would set up the auctioneer with their own AirPods. I would set up Zoom and Unity on their desktop. And then we had an IFB channel direct into their ears, and they didn't have to have multiple devices. They just ran it straight from the desktop, and it was the same audio path as their Zoom. So it was very useful for those kinds of things. And it works on your phone. I mean, that's the beauty of it. Like it's a phone that everybody already has, or you can use it on a desktop. If you're a fixed position, then your desktop might be a better place to host it. It also has a Stream Deck and companion integrations. So if you have a Stream Deck, you can punch buttons to open your talk channels, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's.
I want to show you a show that I did middle of last year. It was done from a studio in Brooklyn, and it was a how do you describe it? A reality show, and these people wanted to share their reality moments with their families back in France, Ethiopia, Russia, and I think the last one was maybe Australia. So we had to set up a feed to talk to all of these people, and this is the concept I came up with. I was using a Riedel intercom system, so everybody in the theater there was on Riedel, but we had to have comms to these places, and here's these party lines. The endpoint party line were the party lines for each of these cities that showed up in the Riedel. And VCC was the people that would transmit their audio to the remote sites. So we had intercom audio coming and sending from the remote site. And this is basically the VCC had to get the entire feed of the show. But we had a remote producer that was on Unity, and that remote producer could talk to each of the 5 different cities. And then in each of the 5 different cities, we had an interpreter. So we had a feed from the interpreter that got recorded, and we had a feed from the mix of the house that got recorded. But then the mix from the house went into this endpoint. So we had everything all mixed together, and the people that remotely were talking were not always speaking English. So that's why we had the interpreters. Also with this had an element of sadness in the show. And so there was in addition to a remote producer for Unity, there was a therapist on this same channel here. So if things got too out of control, she could come online and try to control the whole situation. So this was all over the world. The interpreters, the remote producer was in LA and we were in New York. The therapist was sitting in our studio, and the interpreter was in the country they were in. And it worked out really, really well in the end. And everybody was able to talk back and forth. We did discover one thing. The talent in the studio also knew how to speak those languages. So as they were cutting to their family in the foreign country, you really didn't need an interpreter because the family would interpret it directly to them. So there was a little conflict going on between the interpreter and the live family on site. And after we'd gone through 2 of the groups, I suggested to the interpreters they stop using Unity and just go sit next to the camera and talk directly to the talent in the remote countries. So we didn't have to, we basically eliminated the interpreter on the Unity thing. So with just another effect, but it worked out really, really well. It was easy to do.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, no, that's the kind of stuff that's like super interesting and makes this such a flexible and valuable intercom solution. Now, in posting, in advance of this, I got a lot of questions from people about, well, why wouldn't you just use Discord, a voice channel on Discord? Why would you use Unity Intercom? Because it costs money and blah, blah, blah. What are your thoughts on, or what's your response to something like that?
I don't know Discord. I've never used it, but I'm from the comm world, and this is the flexibility of being able to punch buttons and talk to lots of different channels. If you just need one channel to talk back and forth, I'm sure there's lots of products to do that. For years, we've had phone teleconferences, before a show. We all just get on the phone and we're all talking together at the same time. And often we don't know if everybody's there. And that's the marvelous part of Zoom is now where people can't fall asleep in the middle of your meeting. I don't know much about Discord at all, so I can't comment on that.
Yeah, Discord, I mean, it lets you... we did an episode on using Discord for comms for very low budget shows. I mean, it's mostly gamers use it a lot for their communications instead of using the in-game communication options. And you can get one channel, but it's not a real solution. But it is a free service. But it absolutely needs an internet connection. So you either need to be connected to Wi-Fi. You could be on your mobile data if you're using your phone. But it is all IP based. Where if you had a server on-prem of Unity, you really could do it with a LAN connection. You don't need a WAN connection. That's correct?
If yes, I'm hesitating because there's always a situation where Wi-Fi is not the most reliable thing. They decided to make it work with port 20101, and which is a port that isn't normally always open. So
you're right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, no, that is a good point. That unless you're in a mesh network or something, those handoffs can be. But one of the settings though on the client side is to auto reconnect. Typically, I know you said you don't usually use Wi-Fi. I typically will use my Unity on Wi-Fi, especially on a phone based rather than like an iPad that doesn't have a cellular backup. And then if I lose connection, it goes to my cellular backup. As long as I have the auto reconnect selected. So, but having those options is absolutely great, which you wouldn't have if you were only operating on LAN and using Wi-Fi. So those are great points.
There's a couple of different shows that are live now. One of them is called PD Live, which is Police Department Live, and they basically follow police departments around live and go just what they're in. Basically, I think they had 8 different cities they used, and they had a cameraman, a producer, an audio person, and maybe a 15 or 20 minute delay built in, so people couldn't watch a show and figure out when they were getting arrested or something like that. But it was when they first installed it and they did the first rehearsal, and the director sat down at the table and he says, "Okay, Buffalo, tell me what you got there. Camera 1, talk to me." And he talked to him, and he threw down his headset and ran into the back room where the tech guy was that does comm. He says, "How did you do that? It sounded like it was in my studio right next door." And that's the great thing about it. It's really a really good quality audio.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And in virtual production, like I said, that I've been doing, that's been huge, because if comms sounded like comms to a CEO in his office,
yep,
that wouldn't fly. That wouldn't fly. But the fact that it sounds like it sounds like a VoIP phone. Like basically, it's that same.
It's
kind
even
of
better quality than that. It's better than that.
Right.
This is a little Bluetooth push button. It's called Blue Comm, which is sold on the Unity website. And if you pair it with your phone, this will press the talk button on the Unity client. So you can have this Unity client in your backpack on your headset, programmed to your camera channel, whatever, and stick this little Bluetooth thing on your camera handle, and you just press it to talk.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, because what's also nice about that is then you can turn the screen off on your phone, because Unity does tend to use a bit of battery, especially because the screen is on a lot of the time.
Yeah.
That leads into a question that Henry Ramos had asked is what headset ear sets does Pete like for Unity cell phone client? So similarly, what are some of the accessories?
I did a show at NAB 3 years ago where I invited Redo, RTS, Clearcom, Unity, VCom, and Crewcom to come and demo their intercom systems all together in one room. And strangely enough, my server has just gone offline. Is yours still connected?
It looks like it is.
Okay, it may be just my phone.
Yeah, it looks like I'm still connected. Yep. But that's what it would sound like if you disconnect.
That's it. That was the disconnect signal, exactly. And it came back online in a second. So what were they saying before I blew my mind?
We were talking about accessories.
Oh, okay. I was doing this show, and so they brought all their intercoms in, and we fed all their intercom systems into the PA system. And one of the things I wanted them to do was demo their equipment and then talk through their equipment through the PA and compare their audio with a BTR system I had set up also, sort of old legacy wireless intercom. And it was a great show. Everybody had a good time until we came to Unity Intercom, and they were using Bluetooth headsets on their clients. And they sounded like crap. They were so bad. So I would say never use a Bluetooth headset for two reasons. One, they don't sound nearly as good. And two, what if you're on a show that has a lot of Bluetooth in it already? I do some esports shows with PlayStations, and they're Bluetooth, and you can't turn the Bluetooth off on them. So I have 150 Bluetooth stations in there, and it makes all the Bluetooth sound terrible. So as far as the headsets I used wired headsets into my iPhone, a wired, not the Bluetooth little earpieces, although they'll work, but like I say, the quality of the audio is not as good as even the little headset that they give you with the phone. But there's another company called theboom.com, really weird name, theboom.com. They sell basically headsets for cell phones. And they have a microphone which you can be in a really, really noisy situation. And they have a demo recording on their website of their headset microphone being used in a helicopter. And they use a regular cell phone headset, and it was barely audible. You couldn't understand what was being said. And they put on their headset and they whispered into the mic, and you heard every word clear as a bell. You couldn't hear the helicopter. And I did years ago, there was a show at the Beacon Theater. It was not a live show for audience. It was the Stones doing a show at the Beacon, and it had 25 cameras shooting it. Each camera had a director of photography, a camera assistant, and a grip. They were all over the theater, going on trolleys, on decks, and everything. And the overall director of the cameraman was sitting in the back of the house, and the actual overall DP was on a camera that was right in front of the PA system. He rolled back and forth on the PA. And I gave him one of those headsets from the Boom, and you couldn't hear the PA. All you could hear was him talking to his cameraman. It was really, really cool. So I would recommend those headsets.
That's great. Yeah. I know some other people have had success with the Blue Parrots, which are a Bluetooth headset, but they're also pretty well noise canceling.
Yeah.
I can also agree with Pete. The AirPods and Bluetooth's varying success. Some have been terrible. Some have been less terrible. But again, in the virtual space that I've been in, sometimes that's what the end user is going to use. I
It's
will
better
say
than
this.
not using a headset.
Absolutely, 100%. There is echo cancellation, but it's definitely still better to have a headset. One thing I had in one of those long sessions where we were doing auction is my auctioneer was using AirPods, and great through rehearsal, and then right before show, both the AirPods died. So one of the
battery went dead.
Yeah. So one of the things we started doing after that was making sure that in rehearsal, she used one AirPod, kept the other one on the charger, and then swapped before show.
Yeah.
That was at least so. If you are going to use AirPods or some other Bluetooth thing, make sure they're charged and that you have a backup plan in place, because that's the beautiful thing about a wire; it never runs out of battery.
Omar, you want to answer that question about fallback?
Audio is not my forte, so I don't know if I'm the best for that. But I did share the boom microphone you guys recommended. And as far as fallback goes, again, it's not really my forte. So you guys are speaking a little bit above my scope of knowledge here when it comes to that.
There isn't a way to do automatic fallback. There are other network intercom systems that you can have a server in two different places and it will fall back one to one or the other. But for a couple of years, I had my server at home, and I have fiber network, a really fast connection. And I figured that was good enough. I just put it at home. I'll just remote into my server at home. And then middle of last year, luckily, while I was not on a show, my Verizon service went down, and they said, "Okay, we'll be here to repair it next week." So it wasn't good. So that's when I switched over to keeping my server at Mac Stadium, which is gives me much more guarantees. It has perfect power and really good internet. I think my internet upload download is plus 200 megabits up and down. And if for some reason the computer broke, I could call them and they would upload a new piece of software into another one of their Mac M1s, and I'd be up and running inside of an hour or so. But
so that leads to a question that we got from Gurgley. I don't know how he says that. But the best solution is to set up a Unity server outside of the venue's network, correct? Since you go to the location where you are not aware of the available network situation, or set a separate network on your own via 4G, 5G LTE for this purpose. So you have yours hosted essentially as a cloud service, and you just told us about what some of the disadvantage or an issue you had with internet failing where you had a server. Do you ever bring the server on-prem? Any pros or cons to doing that?
There are a few shows I do which have a very heavy intercom, network presence part of the show. And they have a network department that manages the whole network. And I could bring a server with me on that site because they would open up whatever ports I wanted and make it all work fine. But if I was going into a hotel ballroom and wanted to plug my server down and plug it in, very rarely will you find an IT department in a hotel that knows even what a port is. So I wouldn't do that. That's why I keep it in one place. A separate network on your own, 4G, 5G? No. Well, that's not your own. It's not your own network, 4G, 5G. That's still cellular. So you still need where you have your server located to open your ports. Oh, but by the way, Unity Connect also needs port 20102 opened, both with UDP and TCP at that one end. That you only have to have it at one end. So the server has to have it, and your Unity Connect has to have it at one end. The other end doesn't need it. So
that's important to note. And if you're not a network person and don't understand that, then that's something, you may have to research if you're going to set up your own server, or you can seek out someone like Pete, who you can hire to help set up your server for you, I'm sure. We have a couple other questions, if you don't mind,
sure,
Pete.
Sure.
James Wilkins had asked, is there any advice on making an IFB for a remote, in quotes, Zoom caller?
So you're getting your audio and he's listening to you on Zoom and he's talking to you on Zoom. So you don't have to worry about that part of it. But you want to give him an IFB in his ear so the director can talk in his ear. Well, that could just be a listen, just a client with a listen only. Doesn't even have to be set up as an IFB with ducking of the program or anything. You just have to put the client in and give them an earphone that's on the client, an earphone that's separate from the headset he's using for your Zoom call.
Yeah, that's typically what I've done, especially for virtual events, is just giving them a one-way single channel, make it as simple for them as possible, and all they have to do is listen to it.
Yeah.
And I almost never send them actual program. They're getting that mostly from being in the Zoom, and we typically will send them back a program feed that is a mix minus anyway, so they can see what's going to stream or to the webinar.
Well, the timing wouldn't be, you wouldn't want to send them program on their IFB because it would be totally different than what the Zoom call is. It wants to be a one-way conversation to them.
Yep, exactly, precisely, and that's how typically I've used it. So, but no, that's great. We also had another question. Where did it go? From Steve Sarno. Says, "Wow, pretty cool comm. What's the range in New York City?"
I would be confident on taking my client anywhere in the city and not losing a connection. Maybe a little bit of a problem in some parts of the subway where you don't have good cellular service. But if you've got cell service, you've got a client. Doesn't matter where you are.
Yeah. And again, I mentioned Justin Herminghaus earlier. He used to do some work, I think, with like the New York City Marathon. I guess that they were using that on the back of the motorcycles for the camera operators.
Yeah, the camera operators and the motorcycle driver, everything are all on Unity.
Now, can you also talk about? There's another feature with Tally. Can you talk about how that works?
Well, when you're setting up your channels, up here on channels, over on the right, there's a GPIO setting here. So you can, I don't have the license for GPIO, so I can't demonstrate it. But here, when you talk on this channel, you can program this GPIO to close, or you can make a channel that is in audio, only closes your GPIO to control something. Is that answer, you think?
I think so, yeah. And there's also there's a way to connect it with the switchers too, right? With video switchers, so they know what camera's live. Have you worked with that feature?
I have not done that. So I don't know. If your server is local, you may be able to connect it into your although Tally is all usually built into the camera operator's system, the camera system itself. In this case, Tally might be used for cameras that are not real TV cameras, not real television cameras with CCUs. There might be just the camera operator wears a headset, hearing his cams channel, and another channel on his it actually has to be, it can't come through the phone. You can't get the GPIO through the phone. You have to get it through the server. So in other words, the GPIO doesn't come out at your camera. It comes out in the server, and you use the server to key your switcher to turn the tally on the camera. And I think that they do have interfaces for that. If you have the GPIO license and your server is located in your facility where your switcher is, you can interface it. Now, when you're making calls point to point, you get a tally on the front of your screen. We demonstrated that before the show. You want to do that again?
Yeah. Sorry. What do you want to show there, Pete?
Here, I'll bring my one online here. Share this one here. So here's my phone.
I'll bring mine up. Is that what you want? You want the side by side?
Both of them at the same time, right?
Yep.
And if I talk to you directly on the point to point, you're now getting a tally on your screen. It's flashing blue on the side. That's right. The tally to this is what the tally would look like with GPIO to talk to you. So this could be tally to a talent person, but this is indicating to you that I'm talking point to point to you. And also on the screen, right to the right of your screen, you'll see a list of people that are talking.
Yep. And actually your name flashed up where my name is normally, where you know Unity lets me know who I am. It was letting me know that you were the person who was point to pointing me, and I can go back the other way and I can select, and now I'm talking to Pete.
Exactly.
And it's flashing on his side, so everybody's seeing that happen.
Now, on the bottom of the screen, there are two little red buttons. One of them is...
And actually, you know what? Sorry, Pete. Because we lost so many of the Facebook people, that was going out to the stream. I do want to make sure that we that our audience here on Zoom sees that as well. So let me see if I can... How do I show them that? So I've actually just made it so that everybody's seeing gallery if you're here in the Zoom session. So if you look at the one that is labeled program feed, you can see that now. So I'm going to send mine to Pete. Pete, you go ahead. So Pete's talking to me, and you can see it's flashing on mine. And then if I switch mine and I go and talk to him, you can see that it flashes on his. So I just want to make sure that our...
and there's a little Ed right there. It says Ed called me.
Yep. Just wanted to make sure that our Zoom audience who did join us from the Facebook, we did lose the Facebook stream. Something's going on with Facebook tonight, at least my connection. Our YouTube audience is still there, and our Zoom audience, obviously, you guys are still here, so thank you guys for being here. If you have any other questions, too, get them into the chat, and we'll take those. Cool. So now, that was the easiest way for me to show that to everybody, and if you didn't see that, let me know. I want to make sure, if you're here in Zoom, just want to make sure that we demonstrated that in a way that made sense. I'm actually...
I've got another server. This is the server that is on my am I sharing the right thing?
Yep. No, you're showing right now to your phone.
There it is. There it is. So this is a client on my iPad. I'm on my Mac. And I'm controlling it using a desktop panel called Stream Deck. So I have all the panels set up in here to talk, and I can talk without having to touch my without having to click on my screen. This is my Stream Deck, and it has basically buttons set up for all the 6 channels, and I can talk to those channels or turn the listens on and off and fully control what the client is doing on my computer. Because once you put your client on a computer, you need to use your cursor to click things on and off. And Stream Deck has a fairly easy way to interface and talk to the client on here. They have a smaller version, which is only 12 buttons. This is a 36 button. But on the second page, I've got it set up with all of the point-to-points. So here, if I share this here.
This is the look behind the curtain.
This is the Stream Deck. So there's my main page on the Stream Deck. So I can control the different things. I can change groups on the client that's on my computer. Or I can go to a different page, and now I have Ed, and now I'm talking to Ed, and his is flashing on his end there.
I can confirm.
So I get all my users here.
And that's just using the Unity Intercom has a module for the Elgato Stream Deck app. There's also a companion that has the ability to control Unity Intercom also using a Stream Deck. So you got 2 different options for using that. And then there's also options with it for Unity with X keys if you're an X keys user.
Yep.
Great. We're getting close. We got about 20 minutes or so left. Omar, do we have any other questions lined up?
Yes, we got a few other questions lined up here. I'm just going to go scroll up here for a second. Sorry, I've been putting these on the queue. And I apologize if I say any of these YouTube names incorrectly, but Tanika was asking, what's the brand and model of the cell phone unit the speaker has shown a couple of times during the presentation? I actually just got this question asked another time as well by another user by the name of Webnetics Internet Studios as well, is asking the same question. If we could show that phone you were showing earlier, if you can give the make and model of that.
This is a Sonim, Sonim XP8.
And I can attest, I've mentioned Justin a couple times, Justin Herminghaus. He has one of those phones. And one day we were working together, and he dropped that phone, and it hit me in the shin. And boy, did it hurt, and it left a mark. Those are very solid phones.
At least half a pound of phone.
Yeah, it is no joke of a phone. Very solid, and it actually left a mark when it hit me. So,
yeah. It also they have all kinds of different headsets, push-to-talk speaker mics, regular headsets, over-the-ear headsets. They also have a module for the top of the phone that plugs in to give you a 900 megahertz walkie-talkie function from the phone for within your facility. Pretty cool.
You're not going to get that at Best Buy, though. So
yeah, I just posted a link to that, which is an Amazon link, and ironically, it is too long for me to post to you guys. So I'm going to put the exact information in a comment instead, and you guys can Google it yourselves if you.
Well, somebody actually dropped it in our webinar comments, so maybe we can copy paste that and send that over to the.
I'll get that done that way then. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. The next question we have here is again from the YouTube side, and it was again, I apologize if I say any of these YouTube names wrong. I'm just gonna say Steven Steven was the name. How do you resolve latency issues on a stream? I experienced that today during our church services. So a little bit different from our conversation today, but let's say we're in Unitycom land. If there was a latency in Unitycom, would there be a way to resolve that?
Well, there is latency, and the most of the time it happens when you're using it, when it's your only intercom system on a show, and the director is sitting right next to the TD or the assistant director, and they're both on Unity, and they're talking, they're going to hear a delay. they're going to hear an echo. It's you can go into the low latency mode and get your echo down to maybe 30, 40 milliseconds between the two, but it's still noticeable. So there's no way to, other than the tried and true COVID method of 6 feet between all your intercom belt packs, there's no way to avoid that.
And somebody asked if you were using the companion integration versus with the Stream Deck, but no, you were using the Elgato, correct? The Elgato app.
I was using just the regular Stream Deck app.
Yep, got it. Perfect.
Is that exactly. Elgato?
Yes, that's Elgato. Yep.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, just real quick for the YouTube asker that's asking about that, having a server on-prem will help with latency as well.
If you have the server on-prem and all your clients are hardwired into your network, not cellular, you can switch them to low latency mode on this advanced section here. It says advanced, and it says on it, configure audio devices in ultra low latency mode for wired clients. That way you can get it down to 30 or 40 milliseconds between users, which is still a slight reverb of an echo, but not like if your server is across the country.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. The latency thing is something to keep in mind. But also there's a audio buffer setting in the client. So if you're having choppy audio, for example, and you're remote, like I was doing a lot of virtual remote, or if you're doing streaming productions and someone's coming in choppy, you can increase that audio buffer in order to get rid of some of the choppiness of those of that audio, so that you can it raises the buffer size, and I think it starts default at what.
It starts at 40 milliseconds.
Oh, okay.
And I noticed that mostly when I'm listening to program audio, maybe every 30 seconds, you'll hear a little tick or something like that. And I find that if you bump it up to about 100 milliseconds, this is the delay on the input to your Unity client. And that'll buffer it a little bit more.
Absolutely. Yep. So that can help with some of the choppiness, if that's what you're hearing on your own client. But it will add a little bit of that latency because now it's taking a little longer to process in the phone. So great. Omar, was there any other did something else come in?
Yeah, so there was one question that just popped into the queue here. Again, sorry, this is from Webnetical's Internet Studios. I'm going to read this one out the way it is. This one just seems a little odd for me, but if you have a we have a Unity Intercom local server, and for talent, we got a Unihertz Jelly Pro, a very small cell phone, worked fine for some time, but died off. Any recommendations for a small unit for talents is the exact question word for word there.
I think it died off because the battery went dead. I mean, that's the way I would have heard that message. It's tiny, small phone, and it died off. I would say,
so I recommend to people sometimes, if you're looking for an inexpensive and you're using Wi-Fi in your own facility, you could do an iPod Touch. It's a super simple, inexpensive device that will run it. And it's portable. And then you can also plug it into a battery bank and throw it in your pocket, and that's it. Especially if it's for Talent IFB, that's kind of a really easy solution that is easily accessible depending where you are in the world, and not going to break the bank typically.
I was doing a show at a large venue, a basketball venue, and the talent, a woman wanted to interview the players as they came back to their locker rooms. Well, we didn't have any IFB coverage in the locker rooms at all. So this was sort of thrown at us at the last minute. They had wireless mic coverage back there, but not IFB coverage. So we took her off a regular RF IFB and put her on a Unity belt pack, which had cellular service back there, and it worked like a charm. It worked fine.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's another great use case.
Yep.
Excellent. Yeah, no, it's super user or super flexible, especially when you have your own server. But again, like I mentioned earlier with cloud, if you needed something in a pinch, like right away, you can spin it up super quick using their servers. And then there's people like Pete who also have their services available if you want someone else to kind of handle it for you. And what I'm going to do, Pete, is I'm going to put a link to your website in our chats, if that's okay.
Yep.
Let me get that here for you. So you can visit Pete at bestaudio.com. And I actually logged into the YouTube, so I can put it there as well. Where you can learn more about, Intercom and RF. Pete's also a RF guru. So we're going to have Pete back to walk us through maybe, wireless workbench and other RF things.
This is the Unity website. Under guide support, they have all of these videos on how to do different things with your Unity. And they're all really, really short, maybe 10-minute videos, but they tell you how to do an IFB, how to set up your Stream Deck, how to connect RTS and ClearCom.
Yeah, it's great.
So it's great.
I just want to jump in here. I know we got about 10 minutes left on the clock here, so before we start wrapping things up here, I did get another question coming in. And again, you guys still have 10 minutes, so if you have anything left, please put them in the Q&A and if you're in Zoom, or put them in the chats, in the comment section here on YouTube. Henry Ramos asks here, is there a method for talent to dial into Unity via telephone similar to traditional telex systems where they dial in for IFB?
You would have to have a phone interface set up for that to do that, and it would be external to the Unity system. No, there is no phone dial-in capability on Unity. I think I'm going to have to ask about that.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of either. And if they were already on their phone, and then actually we're getting from Tucker Dragu is mentioning that you can loop a SIP client into a Unity client.
Oh, it does? Good.
And Jeff Keithley saying we use VoIP app on the PC. So those are workarounds to be able to do that. But to me, I mean, it just seems like easy to have them download the free client to the phone and use that, unless for some reason they don't have an internet connection. But even still, if they're on a cellular phone and they have the ability to call out, they probably also have some mobile data available. So, yeah, it all depends. And I think they would get a much better quality call if they were dialed in, or if they were using the app rather than dialing in. But
on my website that I did with Kelly Epperson and Matt Kerr, we did a show, Introduction to Unity Intercom, with Jess Heimlich, terrific guy, Intercom guy, whole show about using, similar to what we just did here. But we also did a series of using Unity Intercom with the New York City Marathon, how they did that and how they made their 100 Sonum phones work all over New York City for their show. And that's practicalshow.tech or practicalshowtech.com, whichever works for you.
Great. Yeah, I'll get that in the chats as well. That's actually, I can tell you, in the beginning of the pandemic, Practical Show Tech was quite honestly how I spent a lot of my days in the very, very beginning, before I took to doing a ton of virtual work. The first month and a half or so, I was doing like 30 hours a week of webinars, and practicalshow.tech was on my daily, because they were they were daily, and then they went to 2-a-days, and then I was like, wow, now I have to watch this twice.
Kelly called me one day near about a month or two into COVID, and he said, I'm getting tired of watching TV. Let's do something. Let's do a webinar on how to do sound on a webinar. And we did that one webinar. And then the next day we did another and then another and another. And in the first 50 days, we did 50 webinars. Some of them two a day, some of them one a day, but it really kept us sane too. And we basically got all different intercom companies, Clearcom, RTS, Riedel, all those people to come in and do their regular shows that they do, let's say at NAB and that kind of stuff. And then we had lighting designers come in and producers come in and all kinds of people come in and talk to us. And it kept us sane. And by the end, we ended up doing 84 3-hour shows. And it was probably within about 90 days or so.
Yep. I can actually say, too, that before me and Omar started doing, and Chris, who's not here tonight, but started doing AV Tech Talks, that was one of the inspirations as well, was practicalshow.tech, because it was a great ton of information at a time where a lot of technicians were out of work and needed to keep their skills sharp, and the information was top notch. So,
and those 80 shows are on YouTube if you want to go there and look for them. On our website, on the practicalshow.tech, there's a search thing. You just search for whatever you want to look at, and then get links to where all the shows are. They're all there. They're all free.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of comms, a lot of RF. It was a lot of good stuff. There was tons of really cool shows. Very good. I even actually stayed up one night when you guys did the late night ones for the other side of the world. So
several times we did 11 o'clock shows for Australia and early shows for England and Europe.
Yeah, I was all in on it. So very, very cool. So we're getting close to the top of the hour where we typically wrap it up. So I definitely want to thank Pete for being so generous with his time tonight, for walking us through Unity. I also we had Andy here, who is in our panel, who is the moderator for the Unity user group on Facebook. So I'm just going to put the link to that in our chat. So thank you for joining us as well tonight.
That's a great Facebook group, because people come on, they ask questions how to use it, and either Andy or I get on there, but there's a lot of people who know a lot of things about how to use Unity, and you'll get your answer really quick right there.
Yeah, the whole idea for the group was basically, I'm like you guys. I'm a broadcast guy, traditional broadcast. Past 2.5 years, we went to the Remy world. Trying to get a hold of the guys at Unity was a little bit hard at the time because Michael's always busy. But I formed the group. We were one of the early adopters back when I was at Fox Sports. We played with Unity, and then we finally adapted it to the workflows. And then I left Fox, and I started running the world's biggest esports arena on the West Coast. So I've been heavily in esports, live production, and Unity has really helped us in the Remy world, or remote broadcast. And the group on the chat forums, on the Intercom user groups on Facebook, is quality. It's quality information, no spamming. If you have a question, within an hour, you'll get your answer from quality people like Peter, myself, and I have another gentleman who'll be joining us shortly as another admin to help us grow the group. And for you people that are on the group, thank you. Thank you.
I will say that info@unity.com is very responsive too. They'll get back to you within an hour or two.
Yeah. Very, very useful resources. I'm on that. I've been on that group for quite a while. It's definitely a great place to find information, and they are very quick. You can get answers very fast to your Unity questions. I do want to also mention, though, as we're getting close to wrapping up, that we have a Discord. AV Tech Talks has a Discord, and that's where we kind of keep these conversations going between episodes. We're here every other week now. There's also our new night on Sundays. This is only our second episode since we moved to Sundays. So if you want to stay connected during the time between episodes, just join our Discord channel. And then, hey, for those people who were asking why Unity over using Discord voice channels, you can go and test the Discord voice channels, and maybe we can get you set up with a Unity login, and we can get you to play with that a little bit. I don't know if Pete, if that's something we can maybe hook up one of these days, is give some test users a chance to play with it. But I'm going to put that link to our Discord right in these chats so that you can join us over there. And there's tons of really, really smart people over there, smarter than me. And again, it's another place where you can get information really fast. If you post something, usually someone will get it to you right away. Sorry, I'm misspelling things, typos, trying to correct as I go. So join us on Discord and keep the conversations going. This is a community, AV Educate and AV Tech Talks. It's a community-based thing, and people are helping each other out. We have a channel for posting jobs for hire, so we try to help people within the community. I've worked with some of the members from the community on job sites recently, so it's a great place to connect, and a great wealth of knowledge. I also have to take a moment and thank. Oh, sorry, I need to copy that. Thank the DVE store for their continued support of AV Tech